Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Salesforce Partner Connect. And today we have the privilege of having Paul Selway on the call. How's it going, Paul?
Going really well. Lovely sunny but snowy day in Minnesota.
Love it. Love it. No, it's great. It's great to chat. It's great to connect. And it's great to have someone with such a long history in the ecosystem. I know you've been in the Salesforce ecosystem as a partner for almost 20 years. So why don't we start from the beginning? How do you decide to start this journey and start your own Salesforce consulting partner?
Yeah, it happened by chance. I was doing some solopreneur contracting, and I ended up doing contracting for a very big Fortune 500 financial services company. And they asked me to manage two offshore teams, two domestic teams, to test and do the quality assurance of a Salesforce CRM implementation. At the time, I knew nothing about Salesforce. Knew a lot about testing and how to break software and fix it, but not a lot about Salesforce. And it was a fascinating project. At the same time, a good friend of mine was doing a Google Cloud based project at a big financial services company and a healthcare company. And anyway, we met up once at my cabin and got chatting and said, you know what, this cloud stuff we're doing is pretty neat. And we eventually decided to start a cloud-based consulting company and became a Google and a Salesforce partner. Went from there. The Salesforce grew much faster than the Google, so we dropped Google in 2015, and now we're exclusively Salesforce.
Well, that's an amazing journey. So what do you think are the biggest changes since you started 18 years ago from what the ecosystem looked like, the technology, to where things look like today?
Yeah, Salesforce clearly wasn't ready when I was doing it. I had a lot of gaps, product gaps, and basically knowledge gaps. There wasn't a lot of people around that knew what a good implementation should look like. Those have been closed, a lot of them. Obviously, Salesforce continues to provide a lot of product innovation, especially in the agentic and data space recently. Got to be asleep not to have heard the word, Agentforce or Data 360. So I think the product's matured, the number of people using it, it's probably in a third of all major companies, maybe more. I don't have conversations like what's a CRM, what is Salesforce anymore. And I think the other thing is it's moved from just the functional capabilities, sales, marketing, service, to adding a sort of vertical sector layer with the industry clouds. And now it's sprinkling AI and data capabilities across all of that.
Got it. And in particular, I think you kind of highlighted the specialization in some of the industries, also different clouds like the nonprofit cloud. I think your company specialize with nonprofit, higher education. So in those organizations that are mission driven, where do you see the biggest opportunities to better leverage Salesforce today?
Yeah, I'll start with maybe higher education. Higher education at the moment is under a lot of financial pressure and budgetary pressure. Where they can use Salesforce is not just in their typical higher education operations, but in their non-traditional revenue generating operations, because Salesforce, by its nature, is good at sales, service, relationship management. Some of those areas I've seen massive improvements are in tech transfer departments, entrepreneurial in residence, patent management, corporate relations is a massive one, where universities are being forced to have a for-profit motive to get additional revenue in around research management as well. In terms of non-profits, they're also under a lot of financial pressure, as you've probably seen last year. They're having to get their fundraising, major gifts, grant management much more streamlined. They can't afford the level of staffing they've got at the moment. And I've seen a lot of nonprofits either fail or merge with other nonprofits. So the AI-driven approach or AI-first approach is resonating with a lot of nonprofits. The problem with both higher ed and nonprofits is they don't know how to do this safely, and they don't understand some of the challenges they're going to have with change management, both human and technical.
Absolutely. No, I think you hit the nail in the head. I think especially in nonprofit, they are resource constrained. You mentioned like on budget, also in terms of expertise. Many nonprofits, they have smaller teams. They don't have a Salesforce admin or like an IT admin. So they are more limited on that capacity. So how are things like nonprofit cloud helping these organizations that don't have all the resources to leverage these technologies so they can have more impact?
Yeah, it's really around about automation. And I don't mean automation in the traditional sense of if this, do that, sort of like that automation is great, but I mean automation in terms of managing relationships with the funders and grant managers. And to be able to automate that in a more agentic fashion. I mean, I think companies in general are moving away from buying software packages to buying agents that can do things for them. Now, you imagine, I'll give you an example. You imagine you're a nonprofit. Now, if you've got Data Cloud streaming all of your constituent data and interactions into Salesforce, right? You've got 10 years of giving history. You've got wealth management history, and you've got how that donor is engaging. You can automate the relationship management. Not completely. You always need a human in the loop, but you can see things they're doing and reach out and say, by the way, your $2,000 donation helped specifically with this cause, which you know from monitoring them that they're interested in. So it really allows you to do things at scale with a human in the loop to check. Because, I hate to say this, AI makes mistakes as well as humans. You need checks and balances. But if you imagine you're moving to an agency model versus buying software, it's outcome based. And I think once you start seeing that, I mean, you've already started to see it yourself in the e-commerce world. If you leave something in a cart and don't actually press the buy button, you're likely to get lots and lots of information sent to you about, hey, it's a 10% discount, please push the button. And you're also likely to get a lot of messaging if you're always looking at bubble hats, and it's everywhere. It appears in all your social media channels. That's an example of that sort of automation that's going on behind the scenes. And the other thing I think you're seeing is you're getting AI browsers out there now that's helping organizations make decisions. It's also helping donors and grant makers make decisions as well.
Love that. So when you are advising your clients, either universities, foundations, nonprofit, how do you frame ROI, and what are some of the outcomes that you expect them to have with this digital transformation or automation you're mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is they don't know what it's costing them now. So they don't have a base point. So you can't say, you're here, we're going to get you to there, and this is the difference, and this is the value. Because if you don't really know what it's costing you at the moment, it's really hard to say you got better. It's a bit like going on a diet without a set of scales. You can say, well, I think I got better. I don't know for sure. So there's really establishing some baselines first, and then establishing whether those problems that they've identified are worth fixing. Because some of them aren't. They're just annoying. They're not going to move the needle for them. So really distilling it down to those one or two use cases where there's a potential for extraordinary return, and establishing a way of measuring it, and then helping them understand that it's a journey. You've got to do a proof of concept to see if it's possible, because what it tends to do when you check something with AI, it tends to bring into high definition relief all the problems they've got currently. It might be their data, missing data, incorrect data, partial data, conflicting data, siloed data that they can't get to, that they actually need for the AI to have the context it needs. Another one is they've got one process per person versus a single process that everyone follows. So they have a process integrity problem. Another area, if they've already got Salesforce, they probably got a lot of architectural technical debt that needs cleaning up. And none of that is sexy and exciting. It's cost. What do you mean we did it wrong? We used this other partner and we thought they did a great job. Fortunately, CRMs degrade over time because people don't use them consistently. They think they're getting more value by adding 800 fields to every object and screen rather than 20 fields they need. So we often get involved in a proof of concept and a lot of remediation, and we only remediate the things needed for that use case. Because if you say you've got to fix everything, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do that." So you just got to be razor focused on that use case, the value you're after. Because once you've proved it once, introducing new use cases becomes a lot easier because you've demonstrated a ROI. And not only that, teaching them the idea of monitoring these agents and continually improving them. Think of it like a digital employee. You have to do weekly check-ins or daily when you first put it out there.
Absolutely. And I think you bring a very interesting point. You mentioned that for AI, I mean, everyone's talking about AI, Agentforce. For it to work well, you need to do, um, first the the foundation. You mentioned clean up technical debt, make sure data is structured, organized, so AI can be built on top of that. So, where do you see the most practical or immediate value in your clients in leveraging AI and its capabilities?
Yeah, and let's take, for instance, say higher education. We'll move away from nonprofit for a little bit. Higher education, they've got a department, corporate relations department. Their job is to get as many corporates to come in, do research, buy patents, work with their entrepreneurs and startups. It's a great source of external revenue. But what you typically find is when they try to engage the university, it's unclear where to go and which department to get to. It's a simple concierge type use case where you could get an agent that basically says, "Hi, how can I help you?" And then it will ask a series of questions. And based on that, it will route them to the right person. It'll put a lead in the CRM. It'll put follow-up tasks. It will potentially do a lot of initial discovery questions as well to accelerate the progress, and put all of that in a searchable database to give context for the next conversation, be that human or via an agent.
Got it. I think that's interesting, and I think it's looking at where they see a lot of manual things that are not adding value, and trying to find a small digestible pilot that you can try so they see the value, and then you can build from there. Let's say you would be entering the ecosystem today from scratch, or someone's asking for advice, someone coming into the Salesforce partner ecosystem today, what advice would you give them in terms of focusing on a niche? Would you still give them the advice to maybe focus on like nonprofit, foundations, higher ed? Do you think the advice of find a niche and focus there is still applicable? You tell them maybe focus on AI or something more broader. What would be your advice for someone trying to break into the ecosystem today?
Yeah, the advice is specialize, specialize, specialize. You mentioned a couple of variants on that: sector, product, experience. If you think of if you come in, say, as a consultant, you might have 8 certifications and no experience implementing any of them. You're a low value. Yeah. On paper, you look good, but most people would say, "Well, tell me about the last 5 projects when you did that." And suddenly you go, so you've got to get experience, not only the education, but you've got to get the experience to stack on that. That's kind of the middle of the pyramid. And at some point, you really got to specialize in a sector or an industry because you've got to be able to speak the language. You've got to have relatable customer success stories. You've got to be able to say, "I've done this 10 times." Now, at the pinnacle of that pyramid, you've got the ability to have a point of view. You've said, "I've done 15 nonprofit cloud implementations in the human services space," right? And what I've learned from that is this, and based on that, applying that experience and knowledge to you, I've got a point of view of what's going to make you successful. You're going to be much more credible, and you're going to be able to justify your cost. And the chances are you're only going to build on your expertise and experience and evolve your point of view. Think if you just get in today and be saying, "I'm a Salesforce admin, I can do it for any industry," your value proposition is going to decrease over time. It's going to decrease because AI inside of the CRM is going to start to automatically do and automate some of the admin tasks. So your value proposition is going to diminish. Not to say you shouldn't have knowledge of them, but it is not something you can bet your career on.
Got it. And one of the things I love about yourself is that you always are always learning. You're always posting about your new certifications, your new badges. Your I think you lead by example in terms of being in the cutting edge on what's out there. So how do you, and I think you mentioned some of it before, but how do you manage the learning with all the new things that are coming with being hands-on in the implementation and also running your company at the same time? Like how do you balance all of those things in parallel?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the one-man band mechanism. Well, the good thing is I can step away a lot from the operational running of the company now. I have a leadership team. So that's a lot easier than when we first started. I tend to have a more visionary role, look at the future, see what's possible, help people in the company think about it. I do get called in sometimes if we need specialist help. And if I don't know the answer, I've got a good network of people that does. But I think you have to accept that if you're a consultant working for a consultancy, your value is your knowledge, your experience, and your point of view. And as soon as you stop feeding any of those three things, your value diminishes. And at some point, people, the company might say, I'm sorry, but you don't have the skills we need. Or I'm sorry, you haven't grown and come up at the ability to have a point of view or accelerate projects. So much like going to the gymnasium and doing your leg exercises, sometimes outside of your normal working day, you have to take time for learning. I have a mantra, always be learning, because if you're not learning, you're actually atrophy. It's like you're just going to atrophy.
Got it. That's great advice. And last question here on my end on closing. Where do you see the ecosystem changing in the next 3 years, 5 years with AI, with Agentforce? Either like the ecosystem, the role of the partner, even now with like Agentforce vibes, how the role of a partner might or might not change. Like, where do you see things playing out in the next
Yeah,
three?
that's a great question. And I think there's going to be some fundamental shifts. I think we're going to start to see customers wanting to buy outcomes instead of consulting hours. I think we're going to see customers looking for consultants to provide with more strategic and management consulting advice rather than just pure technical. I'll give an example. The human change management that's going to be needed to make AI effective in an organization is probably more or equivalent to the technical changes. So you're going to see pure management consultancies, even the big boys, and like the Deloittes and the Accentures, etc., starting to struggle a little bit. And you're going to see the pure technical people struggling as well, those consultancies. What I think is going to grow is the boutique consultancies with a mix of strategy, management consultancy, laser focus on sectors, subsectors, and product sets that can do the technical stuff at pace. I think those are the partners that are going to see the robust growth and profitability. You can already go to an LLM and say, how do I do this? Right? Create me a picture of a junction object so I can connect these two things together. Knowledge is becoming much less important. The ability to use that knowledge and the experience of using the knowledge coupled with a management consultancy mindset as well and having a point of view again is the critical thing.
Love it. Love it. I think you're spot on. I think in the future we're gonna see boutique partners and specialization really being the ones that can adapt to change faster. And I think I also agree with having outcomes instead of charging for hours, but really even the Salesforce model is probably going to change, not a per seat, but a per outcome basis. So it's going to be more aligned there. This has been a great conversation, Paul. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge. If anyone would like to get in touch with you or find out more about what you do at your company, how can they get in touch?
But they can certainly get in contact with me directly. I'm on LinkedIn. Just search for Paul space Selway, Selway. I think there's only 5 Selways in Minnesota and not that many in the United States. Should be easy to find me. And you can also look at our company website, which is Redpath CG for consultinggroup.com. There's a contact us there, and there's also some phone numbers. Take a look at the customer success stories. I mean, please don't take it from what I said. I prefer what customers say about us versus what I say about us.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Have a great day, and wishing you a great 2026.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Right, bye.